Hey everybody, I'm Mark Hendren. I'm the percussion instructor here at Helena High School. I also teach digital media and broadcasting, and if you're signing up for Media Foundations next year or one of the Broadcast 1, Broadcast 2, or Husky TV, I'll be in charge of that as well, hence the Macintoshes in my classroom behind me. Another reason I'm on practice pads today, didn't want to bring a drum into my classroom because I'm not sure who all's here. It's a Sunday, but it's also very loud. Another reason is I want you to be able to hear what I'm drumming along with the metronome when I'm playing. So that's why I'm staying on practice pads today, just in case you were wondering. So what I want to do is kind of talk through the percussion packet that we released a couple weeks ago and talk about some of the things that we'll be looking for when we get to minicamp and auditions, and then further on, once we get into the season, we'll continue to work on those things. So the first thing I really want to talk about is where the drum sits. And that's a very important thing. If your drum is too low, your hands are down here and you're breaking your wrists. If it's too high, same kind of thing. You're breaking your wrist and it's not relaxed and comfortable. It's a little bit different depending on the drum that you're on. If you're on a snare drum, it's probably going to be about where I have it right here, which is right about even with my belly button, maybe just a little bit below it. And that's the most comfortable position for me with my arms, so that when I'm playing, I can have a relaxed feel to my arms. They're not breaking down, they're not breaking up, they're just relaxed, and it's sitting at about a right angle, almost level with the floor. And that way when I have my sticks out, you can see that they're kind of level with the drum head. There's about a finger or 2 finger space between the rim and the stick, if there were a rim here, but you can get the idea with this. So it's not going in at a perfectly flat, like perpendicular or parallel to the drum head, but it's also not coming in like this. We don't want to angle our sticks in because that can change the sound quality. So we're trying to get as much of that bead into the drum head as possible, regardless of the drum that we're playing on. Even with bass drums, we want to get as much of that mallet head into the drum. If we're playing it at an angle, it's still not going to sound right. So the idea with any type of drumming, with any kind of marching percussion especially, is to get as much sound out of the drum and the best quality sound out of the drum. So if we're playing a snare drum, like I said, I want it about belly button height, and we'll adjust your carrier and adjust your stand to match so that everything works. When you're playing tenors, you're going to play match grip. This might be a little bit high, especially when we start getting crosses, because then you start breaking the wrist. So we're going to lower that down a little bit so that your arms are still relaxed, but when you do crosses, you're not breaking the wrist and creating tension in your arm, so that you can stay relaxed while you're doing those maneuvers and moving across drums. It's a little bit easier if you're down a little bit lower. Bass drum, we're going to turn this way, and I just dropped my stick. Good job. Okay, I'll pick my stick back up. When we play the bass drum, it's the same grip you would have as matched grip. And you want your arms about perpendicular, you want them relaxed, you want your wrist relaxed, and you're just going to turn that wrist up. You're not going to break it this way, you're not going to break it this way. We don't want to play the drum like this because we're adding a lot of tension in our forearms. It's going to make it harder to play fast notes. So we want everything to be about relaxation. You'll hear me say that a lot. Relax, 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 relax. And it's all about relaxed but controlled. We want to make sure that we're controlled, but we're also very relaxed. Okay, we're going to talk about the first exercise we play. We're going to play this probably first just about every day. It's a good exercise to stretch out your hands, to make sure we're understanding heights, to make sure we're understanding timing together. So we really want to make sure that we're working together and getting that most basic exercise, which is 16 on a hand, together. One thing I will advise you is to make sure, number one, that you stretch before we start drumming. We're exercising just like any other physical activity. You want to make sure your muscles are good and stretched. So I pull my wrists back like this, making sure to grab at the finger, so I'm getting that stretch right in here. Same thing, I'll bend it back like this so I get a stretch right here. I do that with both hands for just a couple of seconds to make sure I get that good stretch. And then with left hand, I might stretch it back like this, kind of pushing that where I'm pushing against it with my first finger and my thumb to stretch that traditional grip out and get that rotational stretch. You might do this with your forearm, with your right hand, or even stretch like that. But just getting a good stretch can help you play a little bit faster, help your muscles relax a little bit more, because we're going to keep talking about relaxation while we play. Another thing, make sure that you have a metronome. And that can be a physical metronome that you go and buy. Those can sometimes be a little bit cost prohibitive, you know, like a Dr. Beat or something to that effect. They're upwards of $100, if not more. What I have is on my phone, I have what's called TE Tuner from Tonal Energy, and it is a fantastic app. You can see it right here, and you'll hear it. It has all kinds of different subdivisions. It works for tuning instruments. Obviously, it's called TE Tuner. So my daughter who plays flute uses it. My son who plays tuba uses this to help tune his instrument and also uses a metronome. So it's a great, great, great app, and I think it's only like $5. You can get a basic version of it, I think, for free, but it's a great app to have on your phone so that you continuously play with a metronome, and you have a phone with you, a metronome with you pretty much everywhere you're at. So I will say make sure that we're playing with a metronome as much as possible so we get that timing in our heads and we understand how to play it. And what I'm looking for with the metronome is to play on the front side of the beat. What does that mean? If you think about it visually like the dots on a road, we're trying to hit our drum at the same time that we would hit the front side of those little dots on the road, so that everybody is hitting at the exact same point in the beat. Now, everybody could be on the right tempo, but if somebody is playing in the middle or on the back side of the beat, they're going to be out and they're not going to be clean with the person next to them. So that's why we try to aim for that front side of the beat and make sure we're attacking at the exact same time as the metronome and playing consistently. So we want to make sure we're doing that. So how do I do that? Well, I listen to the metronome and I try to cover it up. What does that mean? Let me get back to my app because I bumped the wrong button. You can hear I've got eighth note subdivision going. Okay, as I'm playing that exercise, I'm listening to that metronome and I'm trying to adjust little adjustments here and there to make sure that I'm covering up that beat and I'm playing it exactly the same time as them. Are you going to be perfect at it every time? No, I don't know that anybody is ever perfect at it every time, but the goal is to be as close as possible every time we can. Further, let me talk about this real quick before we get into exercises, how we hold the sticks at rest. We're holding the sticks level. We want to make sure, and I've got a monitor behind the camera that I'm watching, so if you see me looking a little bit to the left of the screen, that's what I'm looking at. Make sure I'm doing it right because I don't want to teach you the wrong thing. So we're going to make sure our sticks are level. If we're holding traditional grip, we're going to hold the grip that we're going to play, but we got both sticks in it. You can see I'm kind of holding both sticks in it. And then we go 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? So when we're counting off, you'll hear, and that's where you would start playing on that last note. So it'll be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? And that does not need to be just a slow out like 3, and it doesn't need to rub the sticks together. It's 3. It's a note. It's part of the music. It's what we're playing. We're going to make sure that we're actually playing that 1, 2, 3, 4. If you're on bass drum, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a pulse. It's a very deliberate stroke into it. If you're on quads, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? I don't play match grip a whole lot, so I'm not used to that. Same thing when we come back in. It's on 2. 1, 2. And we try to get that slap back together. We hear the sticks. It may not be perfect, but there you go. That's part of the music. It's as much part of the music as every note that we play on the drum. And it helps us be consistent. It helps us be consistent in our timing. If you're on the field and you got 1, 2, 3, 4, you know that that's part of the music. You know you're going to be in time, or you have a better chance of being in time if you're visually in time. And you can line up with the person next to you. So that's why we do that. That's why that's important. So getting into 16 on a hand, we're going to do this just basically. We start at 9 inches. We might go up to 3 or up to 12. We might go down to 3. We might split it up and do first half 9, second half 3, first half 3, second half 9, and play with that. We might do some crescendos and decrescendos in it. We also might do second half bucks. We might do something that, because we have a bucks exercise, we may not do that as much this year. But just know that we could call if you subdivide 16th notes, it's a lot harder for you to miss those spaces in between the notes, especially when we're going from hand to hand or we're going back into the release. A lot of people want to play that release a little bit harder or a little bit higher. We want to make sure that all of that is consistent from attack to release. Everything is the same. And in case you don't know those terms, attack is where the first note that we play, we're attacking the phrase or whatever it is we're playing. Release, we're releasing that phrase, we're ending it, but we don't want to end it too hard. We don't want to play it too hard. It's the same volume as everything we've been playing, okay? When we play low, when we're playing 3 inches, and there's variation in height, so it'll be 3, which if you hold a ruler to these, it's going to be higher than what we're actually talking about, but 3 is about right here, 6 is about right here, 9 is about right here, 12 is here, and then you may have vertical. We may have something where we throw in a little bit of arms, but for the most part, we're trying to do everything from the wrist. We're trying to take everything from here and not pull in arms or not try to do arms when we play rolls or anything like that, okay? So I'll show you a little bit of how we play 3 inches. Okay. 3 inches a lot of times, and those low notes are a lot harder to control than the big notes because you've got a lot more space, you got a lot more arm, you got a lot more muscle control of those bigger notes. So controlling that stuff that's really low is a lot harder a lot of times and a lot can be a lot dirtier. So those are the things that we're going to focus on as we play. We're going to make sure that we're focusing on those little notes. Okay, so the next exercise I want to talk about is bucks. This is a new exercise for us this year, and we are playing this just to have a little bit more fun with that accent tap variation, and make it a little bit more fun to play, a little bit more interesting. But the basis of what we played last year, just accent tap, accent tap, accent tap tap, accent tap tap, you know, bucks and triplet bucks, is still there. The most important notes that we play in this exercise are not the accents, it's the low notes. We want to make sure that those are staying consistent with the beat, that we're staying on the front side of the beat with them, and making sure that we're subdividing no matter what we're playing and how hard we're playing, okay? So for the most part, these will be 9 and 3. We may vary it up and do 12 and 3, or 6 and 3, just to give you a little bit of height variations. Depends on what we write in the show, just to make sure we know what we're practicing and how we're practicing it, and we have a reason for practicing what we're practicing. So this is bucks. Okay, you can see dot 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 dun, 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 dun. Those little notes. And yes, I'm just playing the snare parts, but all of the variations that we have, I know basses have a lot of runs in there, but the very beginning part of it, everybody's playing that accent tap pattern, and everybody has the same goal, dun 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 dun, to keep those low notes strong but soft. So we don't want to lose the strength of our inner beats, the strength of our low stuff, because that's what really makes a line sing and work well together, is when we play those low notes together and play them well together. Okay, the next exercise we're going to work on is called 21-23, and it's literally 2-1-2-3. Okay, so this is a double and triple beat exercise. It's actually one from the late 90s, early 2000s Cavaliers that I decided to bring in for us to play. It is a good exercise to make sure that you're playing consistent volume in all of your notes, and hopefully help roll patterns and any kind of triple beat patterns where you may have 3 notes on a stick, to make sure that those are consistent all the way across. Because when we play rolls, we don't want to go, we don't want it to be da 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 da. We want it to be consistent. We want all of those notes to be the same, just as if we were going. Okay, this exercise will hopefully help you with that. If you're having trouble with that, one thing I would invite you to do is to sit on a pillow and make sure you can play rolls. And try to control that with your wrist and very, very little fingers. You're not using a lot of fingers. You're not pulling the rolls in like this. You're stroking them with the wrist. You're making sure that you're playing everything from the wrist so that you get that stronger power to it. And if you can sit on a pillow and go, that will help you control it on the head. Another thing is to play the second note higher. So if you're sitting and you're bored, you can sit and go. And that will help you play that second note more consistently and in an even dynamic with the first note. We'll talk about roll interpretation here in a little bit, but that also will help with that and making sure that the space between the notes is consistent throughout. Okay, so this is 21-23. I'm not going to play the tag the first time I play it through because I want you to hear how we play it with subdivision in the metronome. Okay, we're making sure that we're playing those notes. Da 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 da, not da 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 da. It's not what it is. It is da 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 da. Okay, it is very consistent all the way across. Now we'll play it with the tag to make sure you understand how to do that. I'm going to keep the subdivision on. Notice that there are 5-lets at the end of it that will not line up with those 16th notes. But you want to make sure that you're playing those in time and consistent. And that is basically 8 on a hand. Just very fast. Okay, and that's one of those reasons we play 8 on a hand, and we play it with a metronome, and we get faster and faster and faster as we practice. Now, I'm not terribly concerned about the shot on the left hand. I mean, that's just kind of for fun. I I would love for shot quality to be there every time, but what really I want to make sure of is those low notes right there. And that is making sure that you're relaxed, but you're also controlled. So you're not squeezing the stick and white knuckling it, but you're firm enough grip and you're playing it with your wrist. Hopefully that makes sense with everyone. All right. Okay, next exercise is building on 21-23 and what we worked on with that. This is called triplet sub. It's triplets subdivided with rolls on different parts of the triplet. So the first one is obviously on the downbeat of the triplet with a 5 on the downbeat of the triplet. Then we move it a note. Then we move it a note. That third pattern can be a little bit tricky if you've not worked on it, so I would invite you to make sure you're really working that pattern. With any of these exercises and anything that we're playing, if you can't play it at tempo at first, please, 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 slow it down. Continue to practice with a metronome, but slow it down. If you need to stop and figure out the pattern before you put it with a metronome, that's perfectly fine. Also, something I didn't mention was to make sure that the beads of your stick are at about a right angle. It may vary just a little bit depending on how you play, but we really want that right angle in the middle of the drum. We want to make sure your beads are staying consistently next to each other and not going like this, not making a T one way or the other. We want to make sure that the beads are right next to each other. You're playing in the center of the drum, and that helps us to keep the most consistent sound from stick to stick. If we're playing one stick down here and one stick in the center of the drum, you can hear that the left hand isn't as loud as the right hand. It's not going to be that way. So we want to make sure that we're playing in the same zone of the drum, right in the center of the drum and the center of the head. Unless we have a dynamic that moves us away from that, but we still want those beads to be in the same place so they're getting the same volume and giving us the same dynamic. All right, so this is triplet sub. I'm playing it at about 130. The other exercises I've played at about 115 with the subdivision. I will have triplet subdivision on my metronome so you can hear. One thing I want you to see when I'm playing this is that the pattern of my hands playing triplets is not going to change. I'm going to add a tiny amount of fingers to get that diddle, but that's all I'm doing. That's all I'm changing between the basic stroke, what we call a check pattern, and then the roll pattern. Okay, make sure you're playing that with the subdivision and keeping that. And when you're practicing at home, you notice I'm looking straight at the camera. That's the idea that I want you to have when you're drumming with us, when you're drumming in a line. Your head needs to be up. Your chin does not need to be up here or down here. You don't need to be looking around at other people. You don't need to look down at the drum when you're drumming. But certainly when you're practicing on your own, look at your hands. Make sure your hands are where they need to be. Your left hand, the thumb needs to be on top of your hand. You don't need to be scooping water. We want to make sure we're not doing that when we're playing because there's not really a whole lot of space for you to go. And if you put your thumb on top, there's a lot more room for you to turn your wrist and get a better wrist extension as you're playing. Same thing with this. We want to make sure we're not playing with the tips of our fingers when we start playing these diddles. With the meat of your hand, the stick should be sitting on these pads of your hand, and then your fingers are wrapped around it. And you've got to keep this gap closed because if this gap is open, you're losing the power from your fulcrum. And the fulcrum is where the stick pivots. We want to act like there's a nail going right through the thumb and the forefinger, and that's just the hinge that your stick pivots on. This over here, we want to make sure that we're putting the thumb and the first finger out on the stick, and we're using those as kind of a lever to push down the power from our wrist. Okay, these fingers, the third and fourth finger, don't pull back. I see a lot of people pull back when they start to play rolls and diddle passages and complex passages, but then once you've done that, you have no way to lift the stick back up. It's okay if those come off the stick a little bit down below when you're playing. You can see that they're moving off of my fingers just a little bit, but I've got that finger under there to bring the stick back up. If I'm playing something where I would go from low to high, I need to have that power in those fingers to pull that back up. So when you're playing these passages, make sure you're keeping that check pattern. And the check pattern is the basic pattern of the triplets, or if we're playing a 16th note roll passage, we keep that, and we keep that. It'll be the same thing, chicken in a roll. Everybody knows how to play that. If you're playing that, make sure that that check pattern is staying the same. You're not putting too much fingers into it. You're not putting a lot of extra movements into it that you don't need. But also you want to stay relaxed but controlled. All right, now we're moving into some of the more complex exercises. This is kind of combining everything that we've done up to this point. So we've done triplet sub, which was giving you some basic roll patterns and diddle interpretation patterns. We're also moving into 21-23, where we're kind of controlling that bounce, and we're putting it into context with paradiddles, paradiddle-diddles, puttidas, which are tap left left, tap left left, or tap right right, tap right right. So it's kind of a triplet pattern, but tapping a diddle, tapping and a diddle, tapping and a diddle. So we're going to start out with 12 counts of big diddles, two-stroke diddles. We want to make sure that we're interpreting those the same. We don't want it to be, we want it to be, if we were playing it, if we were playing it straight, it would be all one volume. So we want to make sure that we're doing that again with the double strokes. So, little word of note, I'm learning this exercise as well because it was written by current members Gabe Day and Logan Jones. So if you see me break every once in a while, it's because I haven't quite learned it all. I've tried to get as much practice time as I can, but with teaching and parenting and all the things that have been going on, I may not have gotten this one perfectly in my head, but I think I've pretty well got it. There we go. So one thing I want you to listen to when you play that exercise is especially the inner beats, the little things. You know, the accent pattern is perfectly fine. But that stuff that's going on underneath it. If that isn't lining up, if that isn't just right, it won't be perfect within what we're playing. So we really want to focus on that inner beat, that low note stuff, and making sure that those notes are lining up with the subdivision on your metronome. All right, continuing into the little bit more complex exercise, we have what's called Chewy Spree, and I just named it that because a lot of times when I was on road trips, I would like to get Chewy Spree and a Pepsi, and that would keep me awake going home or coming to whatever my location was if I was traveling late at night. So yeah, that's the story behind that. Maybe a kind of a goofy name, but I'm kind of goofy. So this is getting into some more complex patterns. Some of you may not have seen some of these things. Flam drags, cheese, which is just a diddle with a flam. Flam fives. Okay, that's a 5-stroke roll with a flam at the beginning of it. If you've not done those and you've never heard of those and you've never played those, practice. Start practicing now. Okay. Also, same hand and flam drags. And the way that it's written, I have it with it. So you have to do a little bit of a little bit more work with your right hand. I think I'm going to change that up, and I've already let some of the folks know. We're going to do that more like a Swiss Army triplet. If you don't know what a Swiss Army triplet, it's right, right, left, right, right, left with a flam on the downbeat. So what that means for this is we're going to put a diddle on that second note. Okay? That's all that is. Big tap, little diddle. Okay, so that is, and measure 10 where you'll see that. So make sure you're making that change. Scratch it out on the packet because the way that I wrote it, once I came back and started playing it a little bit more, can it be done? Yes. Is it a little bit easier to control if we do it Swiss Army style? Absolutely. So that's what we're going to do with that. Again, playing with the metronome, making sure we're keeping that check consistent throughout, that 16th note check. Now I'm going to look down at this exercise. I don't like the end of that. Let me do it again. I don't know why my stick keeps hitting there, but there it is. The tag on this is probably the least important thing of all of the things that we put in this deck exercise. It is there to have fun. And make it kind of adventurous and a little bit of fun. We may write some of that stuff into the show, but the main meat of the exercise is what's more important to me, is making sure that you can play flam drags. And keeping that same thing with flam fives. And that's all about relaxation, making sure you're relaxing. Because if you're tensing up, trying to go, you're going to crush the notes. You're not going to be able to play as fast as you would if you stay relaxed. Make sure you're staying relaxed. Make sure you're playing this with a metronome. That part at the end, that's 21-23. That's okay. All of that, and make sure we're not going what I just did. Make sure it's staying consistent. You're not going crazy and going and your sticks go everywhere. Make sure you're practicing it as if you were in the line. So you put that sticks in there. That's on that rest. It's not written in there, but it definitely should be in there. Okay, the final exercise I want to talk about is called Husky Singles. It's kind of an adaptation from Cavalier Singles. Noticing a pattern here. Yes, I grew up around Cavaliers. If you didn't know that, if you did know that, then you get to hear it again. But I wanted to make sure that we had an exercise that kind of encapsulated some of those singles, sextuplets that we're going to play. We're probably going to play a lot of that, but it also has some metric things in there with the fivelets and that kind of stuff. I couldn't find the word I was looking for in there. But then also the metric accel. So it stays on the beat all the way through it, but it sounds like you're playing a lot faster. It sounds like you're going. And that is something I would definitely like to play with. I would definitely like to play with meter and the way that what we're playing versus what kind of the beat, where the beat's going. So make sure that you really understand this. And if you have any questions with any of this, of course, be sure to reach out to me. My email address is on the front of the packet. But again, here it's mhendren@shelbyed.org. Hendren is spelled H-E-N-D-R-E-N. There are some people who put an O in there somewhere, and there's some other funky variations that happen as well. But I just want to make sure that you are getting the most information possible. Never hesitate to reach out and ask me questions. I'm more than happy to answer them. I want for all of you to succeed and do the best you possibly can. So if you are struggling with something, or if you don't understand how to play some of these things, definitely reach out to me. Reach out some of the current members of the line as well. They can help you because a lot of them have played a lot of these exercises already, and they know what to expect from me and what I expect from them. So without any further ado, this is Husky Singles. I'm going to put it on just a quarter note beat, and I'm going to play it at about 125 right now. Okay. If you listen to it, there's a lot of that eighth note pulsing going in there, especially in the first part. Tick it, tick it, tick it, tick it, tick it. I would make sure that you have that eighth note pulse. When you get to the fivelets and when you get to the metricachelle at the end, it's gonna kind of mess with you because it's not based on the eighth note throughout the thing. But especially those first couple of measures, we want to make sure that we have that eighth note pulse in there. And we're staying on the front side of that beat and making sure that we're keeping that eighth note and that subdivision going. Again, if you have any questions, I know I just said it, but if you have any questions about this packet, about what Drumline is going to be like next year, about the potential for who's going to be on what instrument, I know we're planning on having 5 snares. We can have as many as 6 if we have the players that can handle that. We can have as many as 3 quad players, and then we will only have 5 bass drums. So there may not be enough spots in the battery for everyone, but I don't want you to take that as a negative. There are plenty of spots as well in the front ensemble, and we need those spots. We're trying to give as many parts and fun parts to everybody in the front ensemble as well, and make sure that the front ensemble works with the battery. 3 of these exercises, we've written front ensemble exercises to go with them so that the battery and the front ensemble can play more consistently together during warm-ups, during regular practice days, during drum camp. I think that'll give us a lot more unity, a lot more things that we can do together. And we're going to work on definitely making sure that the parts that we have for everyone hopefully challenge you a little bit and give you a little bit something fun to play, something to look forward to playing every day. Again, reach out to me if you have any questions, and I hope you've appreciated, or I hope you've found this video helpful, and hopefully it gives you a little bit of an idea of what we're looking for and how we play the things that we play here in the Helena High Drumline. And I look forward to seeing you on April 22nd, 23rd, and 24th of 2025. If you're not watching this in the 24-25 school year, and we've just sent it to you to learn, then I won't see you on April 22nd, 23rd, and 24th, 2025, but I hope the information is still valuable to you. Thanks.